I recently made the mistake of creating a video where I talked about the upcoming increase in boat licence costs and how it'll affect some boaters more than others, but ultimately all boaters are going to be paying a lot more over the coming years just for the boat licence. Most people who watched that video understood what I was trying to achieve and basically say, look, I'm only talking about my own simple experience of living out on the canals and popping into marinas and paying the boat licence. But more than that, I was trying to say, look, this is a sign of things to come. The boat licence changes aren't going to touch the sides when it comes to making up for the shortfall in funding. And so we need to be prepared when the Canal and River Trust themselves are already posting on their own website that the funding shortfall could lead to the closure of sections of canal, that something's going to change, something's got to give somewhere, whether it becomes incredibly expensive in years to come or whether the canal network starts to shrink, even as there are decades-long projects and desires to be reopening stretches of canal. Operating the canals is hideously complex. You've got a hundreds of years old canal network that stretches all across the country, not only with the issues that all of that time brings with them, but also localised issues. You've got huge numbers of historic buildings along the way. You've got multiple moving parts. You've got thousands of people who now live on the canals, so you're also a de facto landlord to thousands of people, whether you want to be or not. You are receiving government funding, you're receiving private funding through things like boat licences and businesses operating on the canals. And you're also a charity, so you're getting charitable donations. There's a lot of people with a lot of views as to where that money should be being spent. And this is why my simple video yesterday, or whenever it was in relation to you watching this, could never even remotely cover the ludicrous elements and moving parts. And this is why I was simply saying this is the direction that things are going. The announcements about the increase in costs, or as I say, the stark warnings about sections of canal potentially closing, these are bellwethers, these are indicators of what could be ahead. And I think most people gathered that that was broadly what I was trying to communicate. Of course, this is the internet, so there's obviously some people who didn't agree, there's some people who completely agreed, but only in a more extreme manner, I would say. And there were some people who knew what I was saying, but then extended those thoughts with their own that took things in a completely different direction to anything that I'd thought about. And there were a few things that I thought were quite interesting. But one particular thing that did make me have a bit of a wry smile and a chuckle to myself is that for years there's been this idea of the continuous cruiser that people who don't like continuous cruisers have argued against and used as a straw man argument of somebody who doesn't move their boat ever and barely moves, barely uses the network and isn't really a continuous cruiser basically. And of course there are people who break the rules and I'm not condoning that. I'd actually say that there's probably a lot more continuous cruisers more angry about some of the rule breakers than the people who live in marinas or are just passing casual observers to the whole thing. So here's the amusing part, that after all these years of people trying to characterise a lot of continuous cruisers as not moving enough, now that they're going to be hit with some of the steepest rises in the boat licence costs in years to come, I'm seeing comments popping up saying, well, cruisers are out there doing the majority of wear and tear and damage to the network and using the network, and so they should be paying more. And it's completely flipped 180. So the comments have gone about people needing to move further to suddenly they're now moving too far or moving so much that they're causing all of this magical damage that's apparently happening everywhere. There is, however, a problem with this argument, and that is, if you believe continuous cruisers should be paying more based on network usage, then my goodness me, you should believe that the hire boat companies should be financing the entire canals and then some, given the extraordinary amount of miles and wear and tear that a lot of these hire boats are responsible for. Now, it would be extremely easy for me to talk at length negatively about hire boats, and it would also be an easy way for me to win some boating community support. But I'm going to say something shocking here before I continue, and that is, I actually quite like hire boats. And I've often said in my videos over the years and encouraged people to come out and see these amazing places that I put on screen for themselves and see all the wonders of the canal in person. And of course, a lot of people have seen videos on YouTube of where they're going on holiday and come across me, so recognise me when they're out on the canal and stuff. So I've got a lot of friends and met a lot of people who are absolutely wonderful and fine, because it'd be ludicrous to try and tar all holiday boaters with the same brush in the same way it'd be ludicrous to try and do so to marina dwellers or continuous cruisers. Now, not only have I got that experience directly with boaters out on the canal, but my other half's son was actually a marina manager, and I myself, as I say, have spent time living in marinas, so I've seen the other side of the hire boat fleets coming and going. So perhaps I've got more of a broader view of the spectrum than some people out there may imagine. Now, as I say, it would be extremely easy to start listing off just incidents that I've been a direct witness to with the hire boats, the exceptional amount of very fast boats that I've seen, the multiple times I've been bumped into with my boat moored up by hire boats, and the damage that I know, or the more serious damage that I know other people have had done to them. But A, it would be fruitless and pointless to go through all that sort of stuff. And B, it still doesn't change the basic realities. Like I say, you can't turn around to the hire boat fleets now, regardless of what you think about them, how they're operated and responsibility, etc., etc. You can't turn around and go, right, we are now millions of pounds short going forwards, so we're going to come and absolutely clobber you repeatedly and fundamentally change the nature and the way that you have to run your business. Because again, there's a certain breaking point with all this sort of stuff. And if you get to a point where there's fewer and fewer boaters out paying a hire boat licence, and then fewer and fewer hire boat fleets out, which I don't know, I feel like that's unlikely to happen unless it's an extreme example. But the point is here that I'm trying to talk broadly about the direction things are going, not give specific nitty-gritty moment-by-moment details, because we'll be here for the rest of our lives talking about it. It's probably a good idea now to draw this video to a close with a few final thoughts, rather than get bogged down in discussions such as the wisdom of allowing people with no previous boating experience to collect a huge holiday boat and then go out and mingle with other canal users and operate the lift bridges and locks, and then turn around and go, oh, I can't believe there's been incidents with this. Now, in all seriousness, as with my previous video, I'd like to try and move people away from focusing on the boat licence cost increases and what that means for the individual, and just look at it as an indicator of things to come and the direction that the canals are potentially going to go in. None of us know what's really going to happen. Incredible moments might occur where suddenly there's a huge inflow of finance from the government or wherever, and again, you can debate that. Should any of this be financed by the government, etc., etc.? There's so many things and so many angles to discuss that it's impossible to do so in simple little videos. And even in an entire room full of people talking for a year, I don't think you'd come up with a satisfactory solution. On a serious note, thank you all for tuning in, my friends, and thank you to all the people who support me on things like Patreon, PayPal and YouTube channel memberships. It's something I've only recently started doing, so I'm hopefully putting your investment into good use, so thank you all for the support. As also, I'd like to thank everybody who's read any of my books about boat life. You'll find loads of links to all this stuff in the description, but until the next time, my friends, I'll simply say, keep it interesting, keep it boat worthy, have a fantastic day, and of course, farewell.